Okay, if you don't have your packet, just look at the board while I read. What's up, Aiden? Yeah. Okay. Make sure you follow along. Okay. This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created, when the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. Now no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. But streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. The name of the first is the Pishon. It winds through the entire land of Havilah where there is gold. The gold of that land is good, aromatic resin, and onyx are also there. The name of the second river is the Gihon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris. It runs along the east side of Asher, and the fourth river is the Euphrates. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord God commanded them, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die." The Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them, and whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. Okay? So your instructions were to annotate the following passage with instructions from our annotation discussion. So remember when you guys watched that video, and it kind of gave you some ideas on what to do. In addition to annotating as discussed, mark areas where you make a connection to Lord of the Flies. Okay? So did anyone make connections to Lord of the Flies? Yeah, Kira.
Where it says, like, the trees that were pleasing to the eye, and then, like, the rest of that paragraph is, like, do I say what I think?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the island and, like, the fruit trees are, like, the pleasing to the eye trees. And then the tree of life is where the beast isn't, and then the tree of knowledge of good and evil is where the beast lives.
Okay.
I was thinking of further in the book, when, like, because, like, they describe, like, the beast as, like, a snake.
Mm-hmm.
It's a serpent, and the serpent
Okay.
is in the tree of
Making
knowledge.
connections. Good. So the tree of knowledge is kind of where the beast might live, is what Kira is going for. All right, Zayla.
That was kind of like what I was thinking.
Okay. Anyone else? Ryan, there's a light on the back side. You have to go by the door.
Ryan.
Just sit in there in the dark. Okay, here's what I want you guys to think about too. In chapter 2 of Lord of the Flies, what are all the little kids eating? Fruits. They're picking fruit from the trees. Okay? How does what's that? How does that connect to this? What's the fruit?
The tree of good and evil.
Okay. When they pick the apple, right? So, what happens in the Bible when Adam and Eve pick the fruit off the tree and eat it? Alex? Shh.
They're sent out of the Garden of Eden.
Okay, they're sent out of the Garden of Eden. Aiden, stay with me. Okay. And what does that represent in mankind? When Adam and Eve eat the apple from the tree? Sin. Okay? So now that the little uns are picking fruit from the trees and eating it, if we're making a parallel, what do you think is going to happen? Sin. Okay? So could this, what I want you guys to think about, I'm going to give you several ideas tomorrow, actually, in your mandatory class, on what this allegory could represent, okay? The first one I'm trying to get you guys to make connections about is biblical, okay? So is this story, is this a second layer of meaning where it's trying to represent the story of the Bible, okay? Think about, like, the fall of mankind with the apple and the tree. So that's the first thing I wanted you guys to think about. Did anyone else make other connections in this? Kiara?
it's not good for him to be alone and like he'll make a suitable helper for him. I thought that was like Ralph's like
Like they need someone else in order to not feel alone. Okay, good. Riley, are you caught up on reading and everything?
I've already read
Really? So read it again.
it. Me.
Okay. If you read it again, you'll pick up on things way more important than...
I would be extra smart.
Let's talk about characterization charts. So everyone knows what that is, correct? It's this thing?
Yeah.
Okay, looks like this. So what you should have on this so far is the physical descriptions for some of the characters. Okay? So Aiden, you should probably work on getting physical descriptions for some of these characters.
This paper.
Okay?
Do they have to be super descriptive?
No, just based on the novel. I'm going to give you guys another little hint. Tomorrow, I'm probably going to come around and see where you're at on this.
Yes.
Okay? So if you've done nothing, you will not get any points for it.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you probably got caught up. Okay?
I forgot what Jack
Jack has dark hair.
Yes.
Dark hair. They'll give more descriptions as well. Y'all can actually go back through. Is Jack the redhead?
Jack's the redhead.
Jack's the mean one.
Oh,
Jack is the big one.
That's all I know.
Yeah,
I know Jack is that.
And we don't know much. Isn't that crazy? We read 2 chapters and we're all like, he's the mean one and Ralph is the good one.
I don't think Ralph's the good one either.
So far, we know that Ralph is the good one.
Ralph
I
is
think
the
it's
Piggy was the one?
Ralph is
more
one-
neutral.
Yes.
I feel.
But he's still mean to Piggy and it makes us sad.
Well, he
Yeah.
seems like he doesn't take it like
Well,
them on an island stranded very seriously.
No, not at all.
Well, I think you'll get a bigger idea of that tomorrow when we go over the political allegory.
No.
Alright.
No, you don't.
Okay, bring it back in 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Alright, in your packets, what you have today is a compare and contrast chart. So, next page after the Garden of Eden is this compare and contrast chart. Okay? Noah, can you read the directions?
Document how Jack and Ralph differ as leaders in Lord of the Flies. Mark down any similarities they have in their leadership styles in the middle bubble, and document their differences as leaders in their own individual lives.
Okay, so specifically, what are you looking for? Leadership qualities, okay? Remember yesterday when we were reading and there was, Ralph had the conch, right? And he's like, we need to do this and this and this, and Jack was like, fire! And then they all like ran up the mountain and they all followed Jack, and Ralph was like, yo, I got the conch. Remember that? Okay? So you can already kind of tell that there's like a differing in leadership, whether Ralph is trying to do like he's more focused on getting things done and making sure they survive, where Jack is kind of more of like the savage one that's like, we need to hunt, we need meat, we need fire. Okay, whereas Ralph is trying to like keep everything in order and make sure everyone has a voice. So you already can see that there's kind of like a dotting of heads, if you will, between those two. Okay, and that's going to be really important. So as we read, you guys have a couple things to do. You have your vocabulary charts. Why did I say it like that? Vocabulary. Is this on here? To me it did. Okay. So the words that you are looking for in chapter 3 are oppressive, inscrutable, vicissitudes, declivities, and tacit. Okay? Look at me when I tell you guys this. You will never use these words in your life. Okay? That's why you don't have a vocab test on these, because it's pointless. You're never going to use these words again, but what I do want you to know is, as you're reading, look them up so you have a clue what is happening in the book.
Like on Google.
Yes. Okay? That's all I want you to do. Because these words are really hard. Like, vicissitudes, really? Don't any of you know how to read that?
Yeah.
Okay? I would have said vicus. Vicissitudes. Wait. Okay.
How do you know
It has to be specifically from chapter 3. Alright.
Oh, so this is just for
Wait. What about these are like chapter 2?
No? Yeah, from chapter 1.
Okay.
Sorry.
This is from chapter 2.
Don't go too far in the book, but that's what I was trying to get at.
Thank you.
Alright, open your books to chapter 3, which is on page 48. It's called Huts on the Beach. Okay, Aiden, what are you doing, bud?
Looking at my horrible grades.
Why? First of all, why are they
They're
horrible?
so good.
Because-
Horrible.
Okay. Let's either close our computers or close them halfway just so I know we're actually focusing on reading.
I read this yesterday.
No, you can go back to it. Here are your rest of them. You can maybe have it be like,
Oh, it's reading the book.
yeah, okay. Do you do Brooke?
Yes.
Okay. I need it to read.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna do, I haven't decided yet, because I can't really, it's hard to watch movies when I have one mandatory day, so I can't fit it in, and I'd much rather like, hope you guys understand what's happening.
We should watch the movie.
Yeah, I'm watching movies, so.
Huh?
I'm not gonna go back there. to-
Exactly.
Did you go chapter 3?
Yeah.
Did you go chapter
48. Okay, huts on the beach. Jack was bent double. He was down like a sprinter, his nose only a few inches from the humid earth. The tree trunks and the creepers that festooned them lost themselves in a green dusk 30 feet above him, and all about was the undergrowth. There was only the faintest indication of a trail here, a cracked twig, and what might be the impression of one side of a hoof. He lowered his chin and stared at the traces as though he would force them to speak to him. Then, dog-like, uncomfortably on all fours, yet unheeding his discomfort, he stole forward 5 yards and stopped. Here was a loop of creeper with a tendril pendant from a node. The tendril was published on the underside. Pigs passing through the loop had brushed it with their bristly hide. Okay. What is the author doing with Jack already? What is he making him kind of seem like? A hunter? Okay, what else? A what, Aiden?
I don't know.
I thought you spoke, sorry. Brother, you use that? A dog, okay. He's already he's already kind of giving him like an animalistic undertone. Alright, Jack crouched with his face a few inches away from this clue, then stared forward into the semi-darkness of the undergrowth. His sandy hair, considerably longer than it had been when they dropped in, was lighter now, and his bare back was a mass of dark freckles and peeling sunburn. Alright, description of Jack, maybe, in our characterization charts. You might want to stop there and fill that in. Again, it says, his sandy hair, considerably longer than it had been when they dropped in, was lighter now, and his bare back was a mass of dark freckles and peeling sunburn. Okay? So we know he had sandy hair, but it's lighter now because he's been in the sun, right? He's got a lot of freckles, sunburn, and his hair is getting shaggy. I'll give you another one.
Yes, like it's like, oh.
I write massively, so I feel you. Did you got it?
Yeah.
I was kind of sure. Were you supposed to be doing right
Filling out this thing.
now? Yeah, you're good.
You good?
I was just asking who done.
Oh, okay. Right.
Alright.
No. Move her.
I don't know if I have one here. I'm gonna have to come back after class. Or in tutorial. You're a lucky child. Alright, so we're halfway down page 48. A sharpened stick about 5 feet long trailed from his right hand, and except for a pair of tattered shorts held up by his knife belt, he was naked. He closed his eyes, raised his head, and breathed in gently with flared nostrils, assessing the current of warm air for information. The forest and he were very still. At length he let out his breath in a long sigh and opened his eyes. They were bright blue, eyes that in this frustration seemed bolting and nearly mad. He passed his tongue across dry lips and scanned the uncommunicative forest. Then again he stole forward and cast this way and that over the ground. The silence of the forest was more oppressive than the heat, in that this hour of the day there was not even the whine of insects. Okay, so there's our first word in our vocab, oppressive. The silence of the forest was more oppressive than the heat, and at this hour of the day there was not even the whine of insects. Okay, so let's Google on our phones or our laptops, oppressive. If you know, or you know what that word means, go ahead and fill in the definition. already do it?
No.
Not you. Nate was the third. You can use your phone, Justin, if you want.
Hey,
I
Justin.
have a phone.
Justin, you Yeah. need your
Oh,
phone.
really?
Yeah.
Did you get taken away? Or you just not have them?
Alright.
Oh, buddy. Joe used to get it taken away a lot, too.
Yeah.
Okay, what does it mean? Someone who's got it. Noah?
What?
I
What does
never
it mean?
Shh. Well, there's 3 different.
Okay, what's the first one?
Okay, unjustly inflicting hardship and constraint, especially on a minority or others separately.
Okay, so unjustly putting restraint. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. So to oppress something means to like to restrict them in a way that's not warranted. Okay, so think about the best example I have is the rights. Think of like the civil rights movement. Okay, African Americans, Asian Americans were unfairly oppressed in that time. Okay, the oppression was not warranted. So get served. All right, everyone got that filled in? Alright, back at top of page 49. Only when Jack himself roused a gaudy bird from a primitive nest of sticks was the silence shattered and echoes set ringing by a harsh cry that seemed to come out of the abyss of ages. Jack himself shrank at this cry with a hiss of indrawn breath, and for a minute became less a hunter than a furtive thing, ape-like among the tangle of trees. Then the trail, the frustration, claimed him again, and he searched the ground avidly. By the trunk of a vast tree that grew pale flowers on its gray bark, he checked and closed his eyes and once more drew in the warm air. And this time his breath came short. There was there was even a passing pallor in his face, and then the surge of blood again. He passed like a shadow under the darkness of the tree and crouched, looking down at the trodden ground at his feet. The droppings were warm. They lay piled among turned earth. They were olive green, smooth, and they steamed a little. So he's talking about poo. Okay, he's tracking a pig. Jack lifted his head and stared at the inscrutable masses of creeper that lay across the trail. So that's another word, inscrutable. Okay. Jack lifted his head and stared at the inscrutable masses of creeper that lay across the trail. So get search in this one. Okay, this is one of your vocab words. Alright, who's got it? Kiara.
It's impossible to understand.
Okay, so inscrutable means impossible to understand. Okay? Impossible to understand. Do you have your sheet?
Yeah, I already filled it.
Oh, check you out. Just had it again. Alright. Halfway through page 49. Then he raised his spear and sneaked forward. Beyond the creeper, the trail joined a pig run that was wide enough and trodden enough to be a path. The ground was hardened by an accustomed tread, and as Jack rose to his full height, he heard something moving on it. He swung back his right arm and hurled the spear with all his strength. From the pig run came the quick, hard patter of hooves, a castanet sound, seductive, maddening, the promise of meat. He rushed out of the undergrowth and snatched at the spear. The pattering of pig's trotters died away in the distance. Jack stood there, streaming with sweat, streaked with brown earth, stained by all the vicissitudes of a day's hunting. Okay, vicissitudes. What's this one? I like Christ's vocab was kind of in the beginning. Vicissitudes. I don't think I'd ever heard that word before reading this book. What is it?
Change of circumstances, typically one that is unwelcome or unpleasant.
Okay, sorry, what was it, Alex?
This is the change of circumstances or function, typically one that is unwelcome or unpleasant.
Okay, so it's basically an unpleasant change of circumstances. So that makes sense because he says he was stained by all the vicissitudes or the changes that were bad of the day's hunting. Okay, so he's tracking this pig, and all these things keep changing. It gets hotter, the pig runs away. It's just not a pleasant experience, okay, when you don't get meat in the end and you're starving on an island. Alright, we good?
Yeah.
Alright. Swearing, he turned off the trail and pushed his way through into the forest, opened a little, and instead of bald trunks supporting a dark roof, there were light gray trunks and crowns of feathery palm. Beyond these was the glitter of the sea, and he could hear voices. Ralph was standing by a contraption of palm trunks and leaves, a rude shelter that faced the lagoon and seemed very near to falling down. He did not notice when Jack spoke. Got any water? Ralph looked up, frowning from the complication of leaves. He did not notice Jack even when he saw him. I said, have you got any water? I'm thirsty. Ralph withdrew his attention from the shelter and realized Jack with a start. So did you see Ralph is trying to build shelters? It looks terrible, but he's trying, okay? Oh, hello, water? There by the tree. Ought to be some left. Jack took up a coconut shell that brimmed with fresh water from among a group that was arranged in the shade and drank. The water splashed over his chin and neck and chest. He breathed noisily when he had finished. Needed that. Simon spoke from inside the shelter. Up a bit, Ralph turned to the shelter and lifted a branch with a whole tiling of leaves. The leaves came apart and fluttered down. Simon's contrite face appeared in the hole. Sorry. Ralph surveyed the wreck with distaste. Never get it done. He flung himself down at Jack's feet. Simon remained, looking out of the hole in the shelter. Once down, Ralph exclaimed, Been working for days now, and look! 2 shelters were in position, but shaky. This one was a ruin. And they keep running off. You remember the meeting? How everyone was going to work hard until the shelters were finished. Except me and my hunters? Except the hunters. Well, the little ones are. He gesticulated. Stopped for a word. They're hopeless. The older ones aren't much better. Do you see? All day I've been working with Simon. No one else. They're off bathing or eating or playing. Simon poked his head out carefully. You're chief. You tell him off. Ralph lay flat and looked up at the palm trees in the sky. Meetings. Don't we love meetings? Every day, twice a day, we talk. He got on one elbow. I bet if I blew the conch this minute, they'd come running. Then we'd be, very solemn, and someone would say we ought to build a jet, or a submarine, or a TV set. When the meeting was over, they'd work for 5 minutes and wander off or go hunting. Jack flushed. We want meat. Well, we haven't got any yet, and we want shelters. Besides, the rest of your hunters came back hours ago. They've been swimming. I went on, said Jack. I let them go. I had to go on. He tried to convey the compulsion to track down and kill that was swallowing him up. Okay? I'm going to read that line again. He tried to convey the compulsion to track down and kill that was swallowing him up. Okay? So this dude just wants blood. Right? Do they need meat? Do you need meat to survive? Okay? They're on an island that is clearly lush with vegetation and fruit and trees and plants, okay? So this dude just really wants to kill something. So we're starting to kind of see his character kind of come out, okay? So again, on your characterization charts, you have a section that says what he is like at the beginning of the novel, okay? So remember what he was when he first landed? He was the leader of what? The choir, okay? He was a church singing boy. And now we are a man who's got a bloodlust, okay? So how might he be changing? If you think so, I'm just giving you some examples of what you might want to explain.
What was that?
Okay, that was Jack, right? Said to get rid of her.
talk to him. Let him talk to him. I am.
Okay, let's.
I'm doing it.
I gave you something else. Let's steal something. Alright, are we ready? I'm still ready. Stop doing this.
I'm reading this.
Don't even try it out with me. You're in chapter 2 right now.
Yeah, I know. I didn't go to the shower, but I already read this. I know what happens.
Okay.
Well, who's next? Dude, they get in the fight. They're doing stuff, and then they're like, the way they're doing it.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
You know where we're at? Halfway down, it says, I went on. I went on, I thought by myself. The madness came into his eyes again. I thought I might kill, but you didn't. I thought I might. Some hidden passion vibrated in Ralph's voice, but you haven't yet. His invitation might have passed as casual were it not for the undertone. You wouldn't care to help with the shelters, I suppose. We want meat, and we don't get it. Now the antagonism was audible. But I shall. Next time I've got to get a barb on the spear. We wounded a pig and the spear fell out. If we could only make guards. We need shelters. Suddenly, Jack shouted in rage. Are you accusing? All I'm saying is we've worked dashed hard. That's all. They were both red in the face and found looking at each other difficult. Ralph rolled on his stomach and began to play with the grass. If it rains like when we dropped in, we'll need shelters all right. And then another thing. We need shelters because of the... He paused for a moment, and they both pushed their anger away. Then he went on with a safe change subject. Okay. If it rains like when we dropped in, we'll need shelters all right. And then another thing. We need shelters because of the what? What is unspoken? The beast. Okay, remember they're terrified of this beast, but they don't know it yet. So what is psychologically, why would Ralph just stop there and like not even mention it?
Because he's afraid he doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah, he's afraid he doesn't want to admit it. Okay, same thing as like you're afraid if you bring it up, then like it's scarier once you bring it up, right? Okay. You've noticed, haven't you? Jack put down his spear and squatted. Noticed what? Well, they're frightened. He rolled over and peered into Jack's fierce, dirty face. I mean, the way things are, they drink. You can hear him. Have you been awake at night? Jack shook his head. They talk and scream, little ones, even some of the others, as if it wasn't a good island. Astonished at the interruption, they looked up at Simon's serious face. As if, said Simon, the beastie or the snake thing was real, remember? The two older boys flinched when they heard the shameful syllable. Snakes were not mentioned now, were not mentionable. As if this wasn't a good island, said Ralph slowly. Yes, that's right. Jack sat up and stretched out his legs. They're batty. Crackers. Remember when we went exploring? They grinned at each other, remembering the glamour of the first day, Ralph went on. So we need shelters as a sort of home. That's right. Jack drew up his legs, clasped his knees, and frowned in an effort to attain clarity. All the same in the forest. I mean, when you're hunting, not when you're getting fruit, of course, but when you're on your own. He paused for a moment, not sure if Ralph would take him seriously. Go on. If you're hunting, sometimes you catch yourself feeling as if, he flushed suddenly, there's nothing in it, of course, just a feeling. But you can feel as if you're not hunting, but being hunted as if something's behind you all the time in the jungle. They were silent again, Simon, intent, Ralph, incredulously and faintly indignant. He sat up, rubbing one shoulder with a dirty hand. Well, I don't know. Jack leapt to his feet and spoke very quickly. That's how you can feel in the forest. Of course there's nothing in it, only. He took a few rapid steps toward the beach and came back. Only I know how they feel, see? That's all. The best thing we can do is get ourselves rescued. Jack had to think for a moment before he could remember what rescue was. Rescue? Yes, of course, all the same. I'd like to catch a pig first. He snatched up his spear and dashed it into the ground. The opaque, mad look came into his eyes again. Ralph looked at him critically through his tangle of fair hair. So long as you're hunters, remember the fire. You and your fire! The two boys trotted down the beach and, turning at the water's edge, looked back at the pink mountain. The trickle of smoke sketched a chalky line up the solid blue of the sky, wavered high up, and faded. Ralph frowned. I wonder how far off you could see that. Miles. We don't make enough smoke. The bottom part of the trickle, as though conscious of their gaze, thickened to a creamy blur which crept up the feeble column. They've put on green branches, muttered Ralph. I wonder. He screwed up his eyes and swung around to search the horizon. Got it. Jack shouted so loudly that Ralph jumped. What? Where? Is it a ship? But Jack was pointing to the high declivities that led down from the mountain to the flatter part of the island. Okay, vocabulary. Declivities. Okay. It says, but Jack was pointing to the high declivities that led down from the mountain to the flatter part of the island. Okay, so it's probably something about geography of some sort. Who's got it? What is it, Aiden? Is your hand up?
No.
Did you not just go like that?
No.
Going crazy. Janessa.
A downward slope.
A downwards. Oh, that's the one. Nate. Okay. All right. So it says, but Jack was pointing to the high, so there was a really high slope that led down from the mountain to the flatter part of the island. Obviously, there's going to be a slope because the mountain goes up, right? That makes sense.
No.
No, it doesn't.
It's just flat. Mountains only go down.
I'm sorry, I was thinking they go up and bottom. But in this case, they go down. Flatter part of the island. Alright. Ready, kiddos?
Yeah.
So, middle top of 54 where it says, of course. Of course they'll lie up there. They must when the sun's too hot. Ralph gazed, bewildered at his wrapped face. They get up high up in the shade, resting during the heat like cows at home. I thought you saw a ship. We could steal up on one, paint our faces so they wouldn't see, perhaps surround them, and then indignation took away Ralph's control. I was talking about smoke. Don't you want to be rescued? All you can talk about is pig, pig, pig. But we want meat. And I work all day with nothing but Simon, and you come back and don't even notice the huts? I was working too, but you like it, shouted Ralph. You want to hunt while I... Okay, so I want you guys to kind of understand the difference between these two characters. Okay, what does Ralph want?
To build huts.
Okay, to build huts, and he want what else? What's he talking about when he's talking about the fire? Why is the fire so important? To get rescued. Okay, so Ralph is thinking like, I gotta save these kids on this island. We gotta get off this island, and we gotta have shelter in order to have protection. Okay, and then you've got Crazy Jack, and the whole time that Ralph is like, the fire, looking up at the mountain. What is Jack looking at? Or thinking about? Hunting and pigs. Okay, this dude's obsessed with pigs. Never met someone that's obsessed with pigs. Okay? So already in your leadership packet, okay, your Venn diagram, what is the difference between the two in their leadership styles? Okay? You have a lot of information to work with. Jack can't even, like, at this point, he can't even fathom being rescued. He's so obsessed with getting the meat. Okay? Like, his entire world of rescue is now gone, and he's back on this island. So think of some ways that they differ in their leadership styles on your packet. Aiden, on the other one. The big one, yeah.
No.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Did you update your Venn diagram?
I did.
Make sure your Venn diagrams are detailed because I will be grading them for detail.
Oh, really?
Yes, if you just put like something like blonde, brunette, blonde,
Oh.
redhead. Oh,
Right, I did.
yeah. Oh, okay. I want you to actually refer to actual incidents in the novel so far. Okay. All right. What's up?
What do they agree?
It doesn't have to be what they agree on, but what do you see that's similar between them and their leadership styles? Proof what? Okay, so maybe they both want power. Alright. So I'm at they faced in the bottom lower left hand corner. They faced each other on the bright beach, astonished at the rub of feeling. Ralph looked away first, pretending interest in a group of little ones on the sand. From beyond the platform came the shouting of the hunters in the swimming pool. On the end of the platform, Piggy was lying flat, looking down into the brilliant water. People don't help much. He wanted to explain how people were never quite what you thought they were. Simon, he helps. He pointed at the shelters. All the rest rushed off. He's done as much as I have, only. Simon's always about. Ralph started back to the shelters with Jack by his side. Do a bit for you, muttered Jack, before I have a bath. Don't bother. But when they reached the shelter, Simon was not to be seen. Ralph put his head in the hole, withdrew it, and turned to Jack. He's buzzed off. Got fed up, said Jack, and gone for a bath. Ralph frowned. He's queer. He's funny. Okay, in this context, queer means funny, right?
Pretty clear.
Jack nodded as much as for the sake of agreeing as anything, and by tacit consent, they left the shelter and went toward the bathing pool. That's another vocab word, okay? Tacit. And by tacit consent, they left the shelter and went toward the bathing pool. What is it, kids?
Understood.
Okay, so it's understood. So it's an adjective, correct?
It's understood or implied without being stated.
Okay. So he says, and by tacit consent, they left the shelter and went toward the bathing pool. So it was, they didn't have to say anything. They both knew what they were going to do. They both agreed on what they were going to do. Okay, so put that definition.
This.
Thank you, Justin. Stop it, Ian. Saying something doesn't mean it's true. So it's something that's like,
Can I write it down?
okay, Aiden.
No.
Aiden. So like, you know when you are not talking, or you're talking, when you're not supposed to be talking, I kind of just look at you, and then we both know that you need to stop talking.
That's not all the
I
time.
know you tell me.
But there have been times, or like, not me, but like teacher, they'll kind of make eye contact with you, and then you know like, okay, I gotta shut my mouth. Yeah. That's when something's tacit, like you both know and you both agree on it and you both know what's happening, but it's not said.
Oh.
Alright, kiddos. Alright. We are on page 55, about halfway down.
Yay.
And then, said Jack, when I've had a bath and something to eat, I'll just trek over to the other side of the mountain and see if I can see any traces. Coming? But the sun's nearly set. I might have time. They walked along, two continents of experience and feeling, unable to communicate. If I could only get a pig! I'll come back and go on with the shelter. They looked at each other, baffled in love and hate. All the warm salt water of the bathing pool and the shouting and splashing and laughing were only just sufficient to bring them together again. Okay? That's called parallelism. When an author describes people in the same way, but in different senses. So in this case, Jack is saying, if I could only get a pig. And at the same time, Ralph is saying, I'll come back and go on with the shelter. They both want to do something, right? So they're both passionate about what they're trying to accomplish. Pencil in a diagram, okay? And then they looked at each other baffled and in love and hate. What does that mean? Riley Moon. They say, the author says, they looked at each other baffled in love and hate. What do you think that means?
I don't know. They don't like each other.
Okay, so that's the hate part, right? They don't like each other, but what's the love?
Having fun. They're similar.
Okay, how are they similar?
Because they both want to. Well, they're leaders and they both want to do their own thing.
Yes. Great job, okay? So that's why they're in love. They respect each other's like passion for A, to lead the group and to do their own thing. Because Jack wants to go get a pig and Ralph only wants to build shelters. Good job, Riley. Okay. Simon was not in the bathing pool as they had expected. When the other two had trotted down to the beach to look back at the mountain, he had followed them for a few yards and then stopped. He had stood frowning down at a pile of sand on the beach where somebody had been trying to build a little house or hut. Then he turned his back on this and walked into the forest with an air of purpose. He was a small, skinny boy. Description. His chin pointed and his eyes so bright they had deceived Ralph into thinking him delightfully gay and wicked. Okay? In this case, gay also means happy and frolicking. Okay? The coarse mop of denotation, the literal meaning. The coarse mop of black hair was long and swung down, almost concealing a low, broad forehead. He wore the remains of shorts and his feet were bare like Jack's. Always darkish in color, Simon was burned by the sun to a deep tan that glistened with sweat. Okay? So you should probably update your physical description of Simon. Again, I'll read it so you guys can go. You can write down as it is. He was a small, skinny boy, his chin pointed and his eyes so bright they had deceived Ralph into thinking him delightfully gay and wicked. The coarse mop of black hair was long and swung down, almost concealing a low, broad forehead. He wore the remains of shorts and his feet were bare like Jack's. Always darkish in color, Simon was burned by the sun to a deep tan that glistened with sweat. Do you guys know what coarse means? C-O-A-R-S-E. Coarse black hair, it says. Thick. Okay, like thick black hair. Like I have very thick hair. A lot of it. It's difficult to handle sometimes. Is it possible? Oh, we're done.
Yeah.
Huh?
Huh? Oh my god.
How queer.
What?
Right, would that be correct? Did you say like how queer?
Yeah, so Google the word queer.
I mean, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, you can look queer. How funny.
Yeah. What's it say?
It's just not the denotation of that word is just not really used. Same thing with gay in this book, right? The denotation is not used anymore. Now it's a connotation. All right. So we're at the top of page 56. Are we good, guys? Top of page 56 where it says he picked. He picked his way up the scar, passing the great rock where Ralph had climbed on the first morning, then turned off to his right among the trees. He walked with an accustomed tread through the acres of fruit trees where the least energetic could find an easy if unsatisfying meal. Flower and fruit grew together on the same tree, and everywhere was the scene of ripeness and the booming of a million bees at pasture. Here the little ones who had run after him caught up with him. They talked, cried out unintelligibly, lugged him toward the trees. Then, amid the roar of bees in the afternoon sunlight, Simon found for them the fruit they could not reach, pulled off the choicest from up in the foliage, passed them back down the endless outstretched hands. When he had satisfied them, he paused and looked round. The little ones watched him inscrutably over double handfuls of ripe fruit. Okay? Couple things. Characterization charts with Simon. Okay? How is he at the beginning of the novel? Has he changed at all? Is he changing at all? Okay? I want you guys to think back to the biblical allegory. Okay? If we go back to the Garden of Eden that we read and we kind of made connections, okay? I want you to critically think about if that is true, if that's a biblical allegory, who does Simon represent in the allegory? Okay? Who would you think?
Oh, I wasn't
What's up?
wasn't Simon the guy who defended Piggy
Yes.
in the story?
Yes. Simon was the one to stand up for Piggy when no one else would. So, is his character changing so far?
I don't think he is.
Not really, right? He's still kind, and it says here, so the little ones are having a hard time getting fruit, right? And then Simon's like, yo, here's all the fruit you guys could ever need. It says, when he had satisfied them, he paused and looked around. The little ones watched him inscrutably over double handfuls of ripe fruits. Anyone here very familiar with the Bible? Okay, Vanessa. What is there is a scene in the Bible where there's a starving group of people and Jesus pulls out, I think, a loaf of bread and a fish, and what happens?
Well, the little boy eats the fishes and the bread, and then he just multiplies them so he feeds everybody from the small amount of food.
Okay. Can you draw any parallels to Simon here? He's bringing food to people, right? He's grabbing all this fruit that the kids couldn't eat. Okay? So that could be one idea, that he is supposed to represent Jesus in this allegory. Alright. Alright, halfway down where it says Simon. Simon turned away from them and went where the just perceptible path led him. Soon, high jungle closed in. Tall trunks bore unexpected pale flowers all the way up to the dark canopy where life went on clamorously. The air here was dark too, and the creepers dropped their ropes like the rigging of foundered ships. His feet left prints in the soft soil, and the creepers shivered throughout their lengths and bumped them. He came at last to a place where more sunshine fell. Since they had not so far to go for light, the creepers had woven a great mat that hung at the side of an open space in the jungle. For here a patch of rock came close to the surface and would not allow more than little plants and ferns to grow. The whole space was walled with dark aromatic bushes and was a bowl of heat and light. A great tree, fallen across one corner, leaned against the trees that still stood, and a rapid climber flaunted red and yellow sprays right to the top. Simon paused. He looked over his shoulder, as Jack had done, at the close ways behind him, and glanced swiftly round to confirm that he was utterly alone. For a moment his movements were almost furtive. Then he bent down and wormed his way into the center of the mat. The creepers and the bushes were so close that he left his sweat on them, and they pulled together behind him. When he was secure in the middle, he was in a little cabin screened off from the open space by a few leaves. He squatted down, parted the leaves, and looked out into the clearing. Nothing moved but a pair of gaudy butterflies that danced round each other in the hot air. Holding his breath, he cocked a critical ear at the sounds of the island. Evening was advancing toward the island. The sounds of the bright fantastic birds, the bee sounds, even the crying of the gulls that were returning to their roosts among the square rocks were fainter. The deep sea, breaking miles away on the reef, made an undertone less perceptible than the susurration of the blood. Simon dropped the screen of leaves back into place. The slope of the bars of honey-colored sunlight decreased. They slid up the bushes, passed over the green candle-like buds, moved up toward the canopy, and darkness thickened under the trees. With the fading of the light, the riotous colors died, and the heat and urgency cooled away. The candle buds stirred. Their green sepals drew back a little, and the white tips of the flowers rose delicately to meet the open air. Now, the sunlight had lifted clear of the open space and withdrawn from the sky. Darkness poured out, submerging the waves between the trees till they were dim and strange at the bottom of the sea. The candle buds opened their wide white flowers, glimmering under the light that pricked down from the first stars. Their scent spilled out into the air and took possession of the islands. Okay. Why on earth would Mr. William Golding, aka the author, end the book with such a serene image? Okay, and by serene, it's very peaceful and calm, and the whole island smells like flowers. What was the point? Okay, what is he trying to do, Kiara?
I feel like it's gonna get dark like next chapter because like he's describing it as like a perfect island and.
Okay, so right now it's like this perfect island, so you think he's kind of setting it up for failure. Okay, any other ideas? Why? What would be the point of this? Does it give you a little bit of it's kind of symbolic of where they're at, right? It's still peaceful on this island. Everything's going well, all the butterflies and the bees are happy, all the boys are happy, okay, no one's hungry yet, we have some shelter, it's good to go, okay? So, what I want you guys to think about... Okay. Justin, will you have Zayla come back in here?
Yeah.
Just for a second. He's not where we're at. Just for a second, Zayla, I just want to talk about this. Make sure you got it. Okay. What? No. Just got. I want to make sure that you got this. Okay? Alright, so for like the 100th time, what is an allegory? A story that
represents something other than.
Okay. So yes, good job, Aiden, with a little help from Zayla. So an allegory is a story that has a literal meaning, which is like me telling a story, and then also the symbolic meaning. Okay, just like a symbol or just like a metaphor, there's always two meanings. So, okay, let's go with the literal meanings right now. Ralph. Who is Ralph literally? Just face value. Who is Ralph?
A blonde.
Okay.
Or fair-haired kid.
Characteristics? What is he like?
He's the leader because he like and he wants to do college, like he wants to keep people safe.
Okay. Leader. So values safety.
Wants to keep order.
Okay. Order. All right. Let's go to Jack. Who is Jack at face value? Nathan Woodward.
Yeah.
Who's Jack at face value?
Yeah, he's tall, thin, blue eyes, and light shaggy hair.
Okay. He had what did they say? Sandy blonde hair.
He's a ginger. You said red.
Now he has sandy blonde hair from being in the sun. No, I'm just talking about his character in general.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. What else about him? What do we know that he values?
Hunting.
Hunting. Good. Pigs.
He's the leader of the choir.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Leads choir.
It's right.
All right. Shh. Okay. Aiden. Simon. What is he at face value?
He's a small, skinny, with black
He has black hair.
hair, not black skin.
Nope.
He might be.
Okay, Aiden. What does he have? What about his characteristics or his personality? Okay, no. Still literally. Okay. What do we know about his personality? What does he value, or what does he?
He's very helpful.
Okay, so he's helpful. What else?
He's kind.
Okay, helpful and kind. Okay. All right. Shh. Now let's talk about. I want you to think what these characters could represent as an allegory. Okay? Let's stay away from the biblical one because it could go far. I want you to think, like, what could Ralph represent as a symbol? Okay? What do you think Ralph could be a symbol of? What could he represent? Janessa, was that a...
Oh no, it's just
Here, I'll have you think about it. Okay, let me hear
Basically, central civilization and democracy.
it. Oh, that's literally what I wrote down in my notes. Okay, so Ralph could represent civilization, right? And why would he represent civilization, Justin?
I'm not sure.
You read the book, though, haven't you?
Not the whole book, the chapter.
Okay. So why do you think he could represent civilization? Think about it. What does he value more than anything? What is he constantly holding on to?
Rescue.
Sorry, what?
Being rescued.
Being rescued? Okay. What is he always holding? The conch, okay? And what does the conch give? What do people do when they have the conch? They're allowed to speak, okay? Order. So, symbolically, Ralph could be representing civilization, democracy, order, okay? Now let's get to Big Boy Jack. Okay? Noah Maitland. Oh, buddy, okay? What do you think Jack could represent symbolically? What could he be a symbol for? Just like the conch could be a symbol for democracy, or the heart could be a symbol for love. Okay?
Like dictatorship.
Okay. What else? I see your hand up, Nate. Shh, boys.
Also savagery.
Savagery? Yeah.
Could it symbolize like mankind and then like how they change?
So maybe like the core of mankind, like mankind's like okay.
Yeah, because after he's on the island, then he like goes.
You know how I'm gonna phrase it? Primal instincts. Okay. You guys are doing really well with this. Okay. Liz. Okay. Now Simon. What can Simon represent as a symbol?
Represent like God, I guess.
Okay. So he is like a Christ-like figure, I guess. What else could he represent? Think about him as this person that's helpful, kind. He's kind of like He always leaves the group to go to this like serene place. Oh, okay. So maybe like peace or religion. Okay. Something that I wrote down too. Let's see if I can find this. For Simon, I bet that he could represent just goodness in itself because he's withdrawn from civilization. Okay, so if Jack represents the primal instinct or maybe like the evil in mankind, Simon represents the opposite, and he's kind of like the one that's withdrawn from mankind. Does that make sense? Okay, so remember, the allegory is the entire narrative, whereas symbols make up literal and extended meanings in just as one person, place, or thing, okay? So these characters are symbols that will contribute to the allegory. Am I teaching this okay? Does this make sense? Can I have thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle? Where are the moon? Okay. Alright. So, now you guys should take the time to fill out your character charts as you can. And then you should also take the time to do your Venn diagrams. That should be extremely detailed. You should have examples from the text, chapter 3, okay, or previously, on how their leadership styles are similar and different. Alright? The quote that Riley analyzed with the in love and in hate might be a really good example. Okay? You guys have questions? We're good to go?